Hello. Today I'd like to talk about uh, central banks. And just so you know exactly where I stand on them right off the bat, I think they are absolute human scum. Literally, I guess. They are hideous, horrible, terrible institutions. Um, Not only do they meddle hideously in economies and usually just make things worse, um, but they're also inept. And if you think I'm kidding or you think I don't know what I'm talking about, we take the Fed, the Federal Reserve of America, we Bank of America. We know that, I mean, this is the most powerful, this could be the single most powerful financial institution in the world. And they had a huge hand in creating the housing bubble. Yes, it was created largely by the government, but without the Fed's assistance and other central banks' assistance, it wouldn't have gone on for so long. Because if the central banks or the Fed had just at any time said this is too much, it's getting too hot, let's raise interest rates a bunch, they would have stopped it immediately, or very close to immediately. Fairly quickly. But they didn't. They kept interest rates way, way, way too long, and they kept them way too long, way too down for way too long. And it was a disaster. And I of all the people I blame the most for the housing boom and bust, it's the central banks. But that's borderline a bit. But oh, and by the way, just so you know how inept the Fed was, the transcripts that finally came out from the Fed's 2007 minutes when the central banks, I'll put a anyway when the economy was collapsing from 2008, I mean the no, I guess it'd be late to yeah, it was from early to January 2008. This is from the Town Hall Finance by Mike Shedlock. I'll put a link in the description. And it's talks about the Fed minutes from that time. And it says, hilarious transcripts of Fed minutes reveal completely clueless Fed. Today, the Fed released minutes of meetings at the start and during the great financial crisis. These minutes show how clueless the Fed governors were at the start of the recession. And it goes on and on about it. But it's like, it is a joke. These people are, have all these degrees and all these amazing universities, and they're so incredibly well respected. Yet they were clearly clueless as to what was going on, even though it was painfully obvious that it was a major collapse. And they were just thought it was subprime. Oh, it's just subprime, meaning it's, these are just bad loans that are working their way through the system. They were clueless about what was going on. And these are supposed to be the experts of the world. And they're not experts. They're bean counters. There's two types of people primarily in central banks. Bean counters, in other words, bankers that work their way up to the top, and bankers are just bean counters, or bureaucrats, economic bureaucrats, which are just as inept. Neither one of these group of people have ever done anything in the real world in terms of, or hardly anything in the real world in terms of, running businesses, and except for banks. And, they don't understand economies. They don't. If they did, these people at the Fed would have understood what was going on, which was obvious by then. Nope. They were completely clueless. So, yeah, central banks are hideous. And, of course, now what they're doing is, I'm talking about before this COVID-19 paranoia started, and the Fed is just printing money like crazy now. They're not literally printing; they're creating money like crazy. Debt money, of course. They don't. It's not money they actually have. They're just popping it out of thin air. Well, they have it, but I mean, they're not. It's debt. They deliberately. They said time and again they deliberately trying to prop up the markets, and because they said that was how they thought it would help the economy. Well, that's baloney. The economy is growing at a tepid rate, despite the fact that the equity markets have gone sky high since 2009, early 2009. And who benefits the most from that? The wealthy. The wealthy own almost all the stocks. The poor own almost none, and the middle class own hardly any. So it's basically the buddies on their buddies on Wall Street and the banks. They prop up their businesses. They prop up the stock market. They say they're all in. They're guaranteed to go all in. So they're guaranteed to prop it up no matter what. So then people throw all their money in. So that leads to all the stock buybacks by the corporations, because they can take out tiny loans, huge loans with huge loans with tiny interest rates, and throw it at the stock market, knowing that since the Fed is all in, the markets are going to for certain go up. And so they just keep doing this and buying their stock, and this raises their stock price, and that keeps pushing the markets up more and more and more. It's horrible fundamentals. It's benefits only the wealthy, pretty much. And it doesn't help the economy. This is all going to come crashing down. All this debt's going to have to be paid back eventually. It's all going to come crashing down. Why do you think the markets absolutely panic when the Fed even hints at raising interest rates? They just freak, because they realize that this whole boom in the stock market is based on the Fed. And the minute they stop pumping money or keeping interest rates low, ultra low, it's over. And it's going to be ugly. So before, say, 2000, I could stomach the central banks. I didn't like them, but I could stomach them because they were relatively benign. They didn't, they did things here and there that they shouldn't do, but they were relatively benign. I didn't like the basis of them, but whatever. Now, since 2001, I despise them. I absolutely despise them. And they've taken their cue from the Japan Central Bank, which since about 1990 has been intervening massively in the Japanese economy, and it's done no good at all. But and all the central banks in the world seem to be working in cahoots. I mean, they all jumped on the bandwagon for the housing boom at the same time, and pretty much, and all the major ones jumped on the bandwagon for pumping up the stock markets at the same time. It can't be a coincidence. Clearly, they're in cahoots, on this. I think they just get together and they say, you know what, let's try this now, and so they all do this, and they tell the governments are going to do it, and the governments go, sure, hey, why not? Because if it doesn't work, we'll blame you, and if it does work, we'll take the credit. So the governments love it. So anyway, I despise central banks. They must be destroyed. I don't mean kill the people or anything like that or blow them up literally. I mean they must be destroyed. The only way that we're going to get free enterprise back in any way, shape, or form is to destroy the central banks of the world. Anyway, that's my opinion for today. Thanks for listening, and have a good day.